Welcome back to Success in Mind. I'm Teri Holland, your coach for confidence, mindset, and creating the life and balance that you want. Today, we're going to talk about the stories that you are telling yourself, the ones that are quietly, sneakily, and maybe even lovingly sabotaging your success, because we all do it. We all have inner narratives that sound like facts, they feel real, and yet they're completely optional. So in this episode, I'm going to share the 3 most common stories I hear from my high-performing clients. The ones I've personally told myself, the ones that can absolutely destroy momentum, steal opportunities, and keep you playing small. And then I'll show you how to rewrite them so that your future doesn't just survive the story, she's proud to live it. Why your stories matter. Let's start here. You're not just living your life, you are living the stories that you believe about your life. Think about that. Your brain is a meaning-making machine. It's constantly scanning for patterns, making connections, assigning identity, and building a narrative around who you are, what's possible, and what's just not for you. And if that story is outdated, if it's fear-based, or if it's inherited from someone else, well, you can have all the strategy and talent and ambition in the world and will still sabotage the next level you are trying to reach. So let's talk about the 3 biggest culprits. Story number 1, I'm not ready yet. Oof, this one's sneaky. It shows up like, I just need to take another training, or I'll launch when I'm more confident. Once I have everything figured out, then I'll start. Sound familiar? The problem is that readiness is a myth. It's a constantly moving target that uses fear to keep you safe and small. And the truth is, you don't become ready and then act, you act. And that's what makes you ready. So let's rewrite that story. I become ready by taking action. Every step I take builds my readiness. Now, I remember I used to be terrified of being on video. I would not, if you were watching the video version of this, there's no way that this would ever happen. And then one day my coach challenged me and he said, Teri, I really think you need to start doing videos. And I said, no, 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 no. I don't want to be on video. And he said, Teri, everyone's doing videos. This was like 10 years ago. Everyone's getting into video. You need to start doing video. And I said, no, 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 I don't need to do that. And he said, your task this week is to do 1 video on your Facebook page. Well, a week went by and I had every reason in the world not to do it. I didn't have the right lighting. It was too noisy outside to record a video. Maybe I needed a better mic. I didn't even have a mic. And when I went to the next session, he said, Teri, where was your video? And I said, oh, I didn't do it. I couldn't get the lighting right. I wasn't sure what to talk about. I gave him all my reasons, excuses, really. And he said, okay, Teri, next week I want you to do 2 videos. And again, I found every reason why I wasn't ready. I didn't like how my hair looked one day. The lighting was still wrong. I had every excuse in the book of why I just wasn't ready to do it. And the next session, he said to me, Teri, where are your videos? And I said, well, I didn't have this in place. I wasn't ready to do it. I didn't know what to talk about, blah, blah, blah. And he said, okay, here's what we're going to do. If you want to stay my client, you will now do 90 days of live video. I want to see you go live on your Facebook page every day for 90 days. Or you're no longer my client. If you miss 1 day, you're no longer my client. So now the stakes were high. So I did it. And I was terrified and I didn't feel ready. And I didn't think I had the right lighting or the right sound. And I didn't think my hair looked good enough. I still had all the excuses, but I did it. And guess what happened? My business grew. My business grew exponentially in those 90 days. But I had to take action. So you start before you're ready, and you will become ready by taking the action. So the new story, I become ready by taking action. Every step I take builds my readiness. All right, story number 2 that I hear so often, Who am I to do this? Hello, imposter syndrome. You've probably heard this in your own voice. Who am I to charge that much? Who am I to speak on stage? Who am I to start a podcast? Who would ever watch a video of me speaking? Who am I to be a leader in my field? Well, let me flip that for you. Who are you not to do it? Who are you not to lead, not to share your story, not to use your voice? You have lived through things that others are still trying to survive. You have wisdom and perspective and a unique way of seeing the world. And the people who need you, they don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be real. So let's rewrite the story. The new story. I've earned my place through lived experience. I belong here. My story helps. I used to think that I used to think this very thing. I used to think, who am I to have a podcast? And in fact, some of you might already know this story. I've heard it so many times because it's very relevant. When I started the podcast, I didn't think anyone would listen. And then 2.5 weeks later, I was #1 in self-improvement. And that scared me because that showed me that people actually were listening. You were listening. And then after a day, I dropped back down into the top 30, top 50, and I felt much more comfortable there. And then 6 weeks later, I reached #1 again. And this time, trailing behind me was Brendan Burchard, Lewis Howes. And I had those exact thoughts. Who am I to be here? And that time, I held the #1 spot for 10 days. Who am I to be listened to? Why are they listening to me? I don't belong here. And I shut the podcast down for a good 6 months. I recorded nothing. And that to this day, that was in 2015. To this day, that is my biggest regret in business because I had so much momentum. And while I have ranked high in the charts since then, I haven't reached #1 in North America since then. I lost my momentum. I still have ranked high in the charts. I've been #1 in other countries, but I lost the opportunity that was in front of me, and I will always regret that. So I want you to repeat this to yourself after me. I've earned my place through lived experience. I belong here. My story helps. And story #3, another big one. This is just how I am. This one is dangerous because it sounds like self-awareness, but it's actually self-sabotage in disguise. And it'll sound like, oh, well, I've never been good with money. I just don't follow through. I'm not a morning person. I'm too introverted to be visible. But listen. Your personality is not your destiny. Your past is not your future. Your habits, your identity, your beliefs, they are all rewritable. And that's the work we do here. So let's rewrite the story. I am not fixed. I'm fluid. I choose who I become. I used to have these beliefs about myself. I thought I wasn't good with money. I'm messy, I'm lazy, I procrastinate, I'm impatient. That one is still true. I am very impatient. But I allowed these things to control how much success I had in my life. And then I realized one day through my training in NLP, these are just beliefs. They're not true. I have just decided at some point in life that these things were true. They are not true. I am not fixed. I'm fluid. I choose who I become. Your future self is listening. This is something that I remind my clients of all the time, and I want you to hear this. Your future self is listening to the story that you tell today. She's building her business, her relationships, her identity based on these stories. So let me ask you, what story are you done telling? Maybe it's I always fall short, or it's too late for me, or I'm just not that kind of a person. What if you dropped that story just for today? Just today. What if you picked up something different? Something that felt a little more like truth, more like freedom. Now, you don't have to overhaul your whole life overnight, but you can begin by choosing one new story and repeating it like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Your future life depends on it. So let's do a really quick visualization. If it's safe for you to do so, close your eyes. If it is not, so if you are driving, if you're doing anything which requires your conscious attention and your full awareness, then just skip ahead to the end or come back later. Come back later and do this part, but only do this if it's safe to do so. Okay, close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath in and let it go. Now imagine your future self, the one who has already created the life, business, and identity that you are working toward. She's standing on the other side of the story that you are ready to release. And she's whispering back to you. You don't have to believe the old story anymore. You're allowed to outgrow it. You're allowed to become something new. It is safe to evolve. And let that sink in to the deepest parts of your unconscious mind. And now looking at this future self, this future version of you, what is it that this future you had to believe was true in order to create the life she or he now has? What was the story that this future self had to tell themselves over and over? Got it? Hear that story now. The story that will create the future you want. And now take one more deep breath in. Exhale. When you're ready, open your eyes. You are the author now. Choose wisely. Now, if this episode hit home for you, I would love to hear about it. Share your biggest takeaway with me on Instagram. Tag me at the Teri Holland, or if you're watching this on YouTube, just put it in the comments. Just write me a comment and let me know what was your takeaway from this episode. Or send it to someone else who really needs to rewrite their story. And if you want help with this on a deeper level, if you're ready to rewire the old beliefs and the habits that are holding you back, keeping you stuck or stopping you, then reach out to me, book your discovery call, and that's where we do the real work in identity transformation. Because you're not stuck, you're just between chapters. So let's write a better story together. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you. And I hope you'll come back again next week. Bye for now, my friends.